Okay, good evening, everybody. This is Olivine Thomas, and I'd like to welcome you all. I know I don't have good lighting in my home, apparently, but I'd like to welcome you all to the HRD Practicum Showcase 2020. As you know, this is an annual event that the HRD unit hosts, and what we do, we bring out our top students for the year to showcase the work that they've done in the HRD Practicum. It is a proud tradition in the HRD unit, and I'm very pleased with this year's crop of students. The lecturers are raving about them, and they agreed. We told them that you were all afraid of the practicum, and they've agreed that they're coming here to disabuse you of the notions that is a difficult thing. Sorry? Hello? Somebody seems to be having a tad of a problem. Okay. So without any further ado, because one of our presenters is here despite having a previous engagement, so we're going to get into the staffing presentation, and I ask you to help me welcome Ms. Shawna Symister and Ms. Jillian Gordon. So please welcome them in our usual HRD fashion.
Good afternoon, colleagues, or evening rather, sorry.
Okay.
Good evening.
So Shawna and Jillian?
We're here.
Okay.
Can I ask that they put it in slideshow mode? Okay. Please put the presentation in slideshow mode.
It is.
Yes, over to you. Okay, good evening again, colleagues. For this segment, I am Shawna Symister, and for this segment, myself and Jillian Gordon will be presenting. I will start off with the introduction and end at the anticipated limitation. Jillian will start at findings. I'll pick up back and assist in recommendations, and Jillian will end with the proposed priority interventions, after which we'll open for questions if you guys have any. All right. So a research study was carried out at HChem Jamaica Limited pertaining to its onboarding process. So I'm gonna begin with the company profile. HChem Jamaica Limited is a wholly Jamaican-owned company located at 18 Character Avenue, Kingston 11.
All right, could you speak a little louder?
Oh, you're not hearing? Sorry about that. Are you hearing me better now?
Yes, but you're competing with the noise behind you. So you need to speak
somebody
up
is in a very noisy area. Can you ask them to either mute or leave that area, because it's affecting the sound terribly.
All right, that may have been me. Sorry about that. Are you hearing clearer now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, right. So I'll start again from the company profile. So HChem Jamaica Limited is a wholly Jamaican-owned company located at 18 Character Avenue, Kingston 11. It's a manufacturing company which engages in the production and distribution of furniture, automotive, industrial, and decorative finishes. Currently boasts a staff complement of over 322 retail outlets, and 3 warehouses island-wide. In 1998, it expanded its distribution network to include Caribbean countries of Antigua, Barbados, Belize, Dominica, St. Lucia, and Trinidad. In addition, the company also has an office in Miami, Florida. All right, so for clarity, we are going to explain some key terms that will help you to understand better when we get into the process. All right, so orientation or onboarding is the process of completing new hires, employment-related paperwork, and familiarizing them with their jobs, co-workers, workspaces, work tools, and the company's policies and benefits. Socialization, on the other hand, is a long-term process of planned and unplanned, formal and informal activities and experiences through which an individual acquires the attitudes, behavior, and knowledge needed to successfully participate as an organizational member and learn the firm's culture. So when employees begin to work better on their own, become more confident in their jobs, rely less on mentors and co-workers, start getting accustomed to the culture of the firm, etc., that is when the socialization process has begun. Orientation, on the other hand, is that formal meeting that is had usually on the first day. Some organizations host it for the first week when a new recruit begins their job. All right, so the statement of the problem. HChem Jamaica Limited indicated that they would like to improve their onboarding process to create a rich experience for new employees. So they have recognized that the socialization, the onboarding process start from then. Okay, can I continue? Right, so they have recognized the importance of that, and so they would like to improve their process so they can benefit. The rationale of the study is to improve the organization's orientation, onboarding process, and assist new employees in becoming properly socialized in the organization. The goal and objective of this intervention is to improve the process of acclimating new hires to the organization, therefore enhancing their organizational commitment and productivity as new employees. In approaching this study, there were several limitations that we anticipated. These are the inability to access the organization and gather the relevant information due to COVID-19, and also not being able to physically engage key stakeholders to ascertain their perspective on the onboarding process due to the COVID-19 restrictions. At this time, Jillian will continue with the findings.
Okay, thanks, Shawna. Just before I continue with the findings, there were actually 2 more anticipated limitations that we had, which was a presentation of the findings to the senior management, given the current pandemic and also the time frame that we had within which to complete our study. As Shawna stated earlier, I'll be looking at the findings of the study, methodology, limitation, recommendations, and proposed priority interventions. Shawna will assist later down with some of the recommendations. So as it pertains to the finding of the study, HChem Jamaica Limited, we found that they have an orientation plan. However, there was little evidence of socialization initiatives for new recruits. And some of these socialization initiatives could be considered to be limes or one-on-one conversations, or where mentors were provided to assist the new recruit in acclimating to the organization. We also found that there was no structured mechanism in place to gather feedback when they actually employed new recruits on the onboarding process. Continuing with the findings, we found that Orientation presentation was a little bit lengthy because it took into account things like customer service and financial management training. And we felt that it would be better delivered to new recruits if mini workshops were held during the socialization period. We also found that the performance goals and objectives were not done and agreed on for new recruits at the start of the probationary period. We found that there was a lack of a training needs analysis to determine the training and non-training or developmental needs of the employees within the organization. In addition, the orientation folder and its contents, they were in need of improvement. Okay, looking now at the methodology, in conducting our research or study, we actually employed the qualitative methodology, and we used several tools to assist us in gathering the data that was used. So what we did, we had an interview with the human resource management, and this was facilitated with a structured questionnaire that was used. We also were able to view several documents that the organization provided, so we actually had a document analysis exercise. Okay, prior to the study, we actually had some anticipated limitations, but during the study, we actually had a few of the limitations, and one of these, or two of these are, that during the study, we were unable to complete and implement all the necessary interventions that were given, given the time allotted and the pandemic. Another limitation we faced was our inability to physically engage stakeholders, in particular the employees, to ascertain their perspective on the onboarding processes due to the COVID-19 restrictions. So after we looked at everything and our findings, we came up with some recommendations that we thought would assist the organization in functioning more optimally, and these are so we recommended that the human resource department, that they should develop an evaluation feedback form to gather information on the orientation program from new recruits in order to monitor the quality of the program and on an ongoing basis. We also recommended that they develop a structured orientation or onboarding plan. Amongst the recommendations were the revision and updating of the orientation presentation. And as I said earlier, there were a lot of stuff that were in the presentation, and we recommended that they eliminate some of those things and that they deliver customer service training and financial training separately. We also recommended that they improve the socialization process by assigning mentors to the new recruits to help them to adjust to the culture, job, and environment of the organization. Another recommendation was to revise the orientation checklist. When we got the documents to analyze, we found that they had like a general checklist, and the general checklist, it was difficult to differentiate or identify what functions or responsibilities were given to the human resource department versus the supervisory staff, and as such, we recommended that they have two separate checklists for both groups of persons. We also recommended that they revise the orientation folder and its content so that the organization's image and brand could be better reflected. Okay, we also recommended that they conduct an annual training needs analysis, and this we said that they should do in collaboration with the training manager. They'd be better able to identify the training and non-training needs, or what we call developmental needs, of the employee, and also to review and update the employee handbook periodically to ensure that the contents that are in it, whether from the internally or externally, that they were current, because when we got the handbook, we found that it had been some years since it had been reviewed. Shawna will now take you through this section.
Thank you, Jillian.
Sure.
Okay, all right. So the final recommendation was that supervisors should discuss and agree on performance goals and objectives with new recruits at the start of the probationary period. What we found is that this was not done, so new recruits did not truly know what they need to meet, what goals and objectives they need to meet in order to be a successful employee. All right, so based on our findings and recommendations, we decided on some priority interventions. So we decided to create a separate orientation checklist for the Human Resource Department and supervisors use. So the Human Resource Department will have their individual checklist as well as the supervisors. We decided to revise the orientation presentation. As Jillian made reference to, we found that the presentation was a bit lengthy, and that was because they had some areas that we felt like were better suited for mini workshop during the socialization process. We also endeavored to revise the orientation folder. We found that there were information that was included that was not necessary and could be better used in another forum. We also decided to create an employee handbook and also an onboarding guide.
Okay,
That ends our presentation. So at this time, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Any questions, anybody?
There's a question. Good evening. So you had mentioned that COVID and also the time restriction, but how long did it take you to research and plan your intervention? What is your time frame?
Well, the practicum itself is within 6 weeks. So we had to use our time wisely. So we had to, are you hearing me?
Yes, yes, go ahead, please.
Okay, so we had to use,
$900 on that fish and $900 on that boat. I did $800 CD. Oh.
can I continue now? All right, so the practicum, so as I said before, the practicum itself is 6 weeks. So we kind of had to get the ball rolling. We kind of had to start soon to reach out to the human resource officer to gather the pertinent information. So within a 6 weeks period is when we had to gather the information to do the research and to present our final report.
May I add something here?
Practicum itself, sorry, Doc, just a minute. The practicum itself was 6 weeks. It spanned 6 weeks. But we had within the 6 weeks, we had a time frame within which we would have gathered the information. Say the first 3 weeks, along with our literature review and other information to support and to help us, in kind of billing out some of the stuff. So it was a 6 week span, but we had to allot different time frames for different segments of the practicum so we could be able to do as best as we could and to capture the information and present it to the organization in the best possible way. Over to you, Doc.
Sorry, could I make something clear? Ordinarily, the practicum is 8 weeks with a 9th week for write-up. It was because of the COVID disruption that it was 6 weeks for these ladies. So they did this work in 6 weeks, but ordinarily it would have been 8 to 9 weeks.
Okay, just to clarify the breakdown within the time. Students do a work plan and ensure that they have partitioned the work in order to meet the deadlines. So in terms of gathering the research, after you have actually designed an instrument, gathering the research itself only takes maybe about 2 weeks or less, because you'll have to make appointments in order to get the information you need, especially now that it is virtual. The students had to set up virtual interviews, and sometimes you'll set them up and for one reason or the other, the organization cancels. So 2 weeks is a safe period. It shouldn't take you any more than 2 weeks to gather all the information that you need. So I hope I've made that a little clearer.
You did. Thank you, Doc.
Hi, good evening. Can I ask a question at this point?
Sure, please identify yourself.
Sure, okay, sorry. Right, I just wanted not to interrupt. All right, so good evening, everyone. My name is Anna K. Brumfield. I just have a question here. First of all, I just would like to say congratulations, ladies, for a job well done. Your presentation was really comprehensive, and I'm happy that I was able to see the different areas that would have to address for the practicum. Do you have any tips for us? So we are in our second semester. We're now being exposed to other areas. Right now we're doing job analysis and staffing, and we're doing performance management this semester. So can you just give us some tips? How did you select which comes first? Which process takes priority for it to make sense in your selection? Do you think of the area first that you want to do the focus of the practicum on, and then you try to find an organization that this would be fitting in? Because I noted, especially for this presentation, you were able to say that some of the findings were, so your focus was staffing, and you were able to see how really it was very fitting for you to have done that area of focus for the practicum, because within that specific organization, you were able to find different, through your needs assessments, you were able to see where, you know, this implementation would have been necessary in terms of your recommendation. Is there any tip that you can give to us in terms of, so which comes first? Do we think of, okay, so fine, I'd want to do performance management, or I'd want to do staffing, and then I find my organization, or do I find my organization and I do like my my questioning or my research, and I may find that probably I want to choose another organization? What tip could you have for us? Hope that's not too much of a complicated question, sorry.
No, it's not a stupid question. Shawna, I'll take it first. Personally, could be either way, to be honest with you, but for me personally, I paid attention to the different areas that we were taught, and I felt that I wanted to work in an area that when I looked at my organization, I felt could be impactful. So it depends on what it is that what your objectives are. What is it that you hope to attain? How impactful you want to be? Do you see a lack in a particular area and you want to gain the experience so you can bring to bear in a positive way in your organization or a future organization that you may work in? So it depends. You can choose before, or you could probably identify an organization and find out from the organization what areas it is there are that they may need assistance in, and based on those that they probably present to you, once it fits within the scope of what we're doing, you could actually pursue. So that was kind of like my strategy. But I'm not sure there's any one set way, because everybody functions differently, but for me, that was how I approached it. Shawna?
Okay, good evening again. So for me, in addition to what Jillian said, for me, I made the decision about the area that I would like to do prior to even the organization. However, my tip that I would give to you is just to be open. So what you think you were you know, what you think you want to do may not work out. So just be open to different areas. Because going into this practicum, I thought I would do performance management, but that did not work out. And once the staffing became available, I kind of ran with that. So just be open. Just know that you may have decided that you want to do a particular area, but that may not be the case at the end of the day.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Welcome.
Olivine?
Yes,
If I may just jump in here 1 minute while I'm hearing that discussion, just to say to the students now who are preparing for practicum, I've heard Shawna and Jillian's defense of the strategy that they've used. To the students, just be careful. We've had the experience as lecturers where people start one practicum or even try to straggle 2 practicums. Be careful. So try and think through what you may want to do probably even ahead of the practicum. So when you get into a particular stream, you would have somewhat settled or know what you're doing. It is a little bit unsettling for us as lecturers to find that we have already started a process or a track, and then somebody in midstream says, I don't want to do this practicum again, and they switch. So just as a caution. Another thing I'd say is start the process very early out. So for example, I've started to reach out to some members, this particular group, because in my organization this year, I see the need to do a study on organization or on our organizational culture. 2 years ago, I reached out to a cohort and asked them to do a study on employee engagement and employee satisfaction. So kind of beforehand, you will get a sense of what's your area of specialization and probably may have some insight into, you know, something that somebody would want to do probably beforehand. So I would suggest that you get a sense of where your comfort zone is, but also where some things are, but also where some things are probably topical and current. So the reading as well can also help you, reading and seeing what is happening out there in the business environment, for example, maybe a strategy, and then you can probably approach companies.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to just add a little thing to what Rohan had just said. Mr. McCalla is the person who teaches the research methods course. So he's the person who will lead you through the research project, the research practicum. I hesitate to say research paper because we don't have a research paper in the M.Sc program. But Mr. McCalla, he does make himself available to help people sort out some of the finer issues of the research methodology in their projects, regardless of the area. But the truth is that you have a set time. You have to show that you've done 6 credits worth of work for an area. So if you're going to jump, say, from staffing to do research, or you're moving from staffing to training or something like that, unless it was something that occurred at the organization, we would be looking at you in an askance way, because we would wonder, how did you put in that time? If you're jumping midstream, how did you put in time in the organization sufficient to do a project to the satisfaction of the organization and to the standards that we require? So it is important that you think about it from now, from January, even though you'll be doing it in May, June. Think about it from now, what you want to do, and begin the process of finding yourself an organization and discussing with the people there the nature of the work that you want to do. And once you do that, discuss it with your lecturers, because the organization might want you to do something. I mean, totally revamp the organization. That is Most likely, that is more likely than not to be outside the scope of the course. You cannot do that in 8 weeks. You may not have learned enough in this program to do all of that. So you find an organization, run it by the lecturers. They can tell you, because the lecturer who taught you that course will be the person who will lead you through the process.
You know the word, please?
I beg your pardon?
What is the magic word?
I'm not sure. But what I'm saying to you guys is that
interference.
Okay, the lecturer will lead you through the process, and that person knows what you are capable of in terms of the practicum. So begin to engage your lecturers early. And Mr. McCalla has assured me he will be available to give some assistance to every single student in the program, regardless of the practicum that he or she is doing. But don't take advantage, people. Please don't take advantage. All right?
May I add, Olivine, that just to reaffirm, both what Mr. McCalla has said and what you're saying, the choosing of an organization is very, very important. Some of the observations that I have made over the years is that students take that lightly, and 3 weeks into the practicum, they still do not have an organization. And when you do that, you have put yourself at great risk. And I think it's important that you keep in mind that this is 6 credits. This is a 6-credit course. It's the capstone of the program, and you cannot graduate without it. So when you have taken 3 weeks to not be able to settle down to your work, you have put yourself at great, great risk. Okay, so it's very important that you begin to identify maybe even more than one organization, because sometimes you will have one organization picked out and something happens and the organization cannot accommodate you, etc. So start early. My advice is to start early so that you give yourself a good chance to accomplish the work that you need to accomplish. But waiting for 3 weeks into a practicum to then say, this is my organization, or to switch the organization, it's not just a matter of switching from one practicum to another. What I've seen happening too is students decide after they've gone in there, that they don't want that organization anymore. And sometimes 3-4 weeks and you're now going to switch an organization. You cannot produce quality work, and you've put yourself at great risk.
Yes, and you put the program's reputation at risk and your reputation at risk. I see Rashina has a hand up. You have a question, Rashina?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Olivine. The question that I want to ask, can we do the practicum, like visit a school, or it has to be one of those, another organization, except the education system?
No, you can do a school. We've had many schools.
Yeah, we've had many schools.
Okay.
And Rohan has another comment.
Olivine, I can't overemphasize the need to start thinking it through early, and I'm glad that the participants are asking the questions. Just this morning, I was thinking through what process of ethical consideration my group will go through, for example. So I'm going to be expecting them to out of a proposal, write to get formal consent, for example, from the organization. That can take some time, depending on the organization and stuff. But not only getting consent from the organization, but getting consent in some instances from the participants can take a little while. Remember, it's 8 weeks. But while you're thinking through what you're doing, you also have to think that you are HR practitioners and you want to observe as much of the ethical considerations that there are. And so for me, your documentation should also show that you have gone through that. In fact, for the last group I worked with, one of the things I'd said to them, and certainly other groups, one of the things I'd said to them, although the time frame is short and it does require us to go through that rigor of ethical approval, we should still think of the process as if we need to go through ethical approval, which means taking into consideration those ethical issues that needs to be addressed as you go through the process of the practicum. So it's just food for thought.
And I'd also like to add too, this thing about getting permission from, sorry, from the organization is very important. You can't sneak into an organization. You have to have whomever, the head of HR, but you have to get proper permission. We have had people asking friends, and the friends sneak them into the organization and that kind of thing. And then, you know, oddly enough, those are the years when something goes wrong and we find out that the students didn't enter the organization properly. This is a consultancy, and there's a process in how consultants enter an organization, execute the work, and then exit the organization. And I'm hoping that at some point this evening, one of these presenters will address something like that. But students need to understand that this should never happen. We've known of people losing their jobs because of that. They engaged with a student in the HRD program improperly, and the organization didn't like it. The organization found out that there were students doing work in the organization when we called to double check that they knew that the students were there, because we do check up to make sure that the organization knows that you're there. Because again, we've also had the unfortunate situation of students claiming to do work and the organization knows nothing at all about them, in that they're just fabricated the entire thing. We check. So the organization shouldn't be hearing from me that people have been there for the last 6 to 8 weeks. So we need to set that up properly. We write letters, we give you whatever you need to have to get in there. You make the initial contact and we follow up officially from the university.
Olivine, if I may add too, which still continues to be a very sore point, and I'm not sure that the students fully understand that. In addition to all that has to be done, you will have to make arrangements with your existing organization for the proper time that you will need in order to conduct the practicum. It is one of the biggest things that prevents you from completing your practicum, because when you enter the program, you agreed to certain conditions and you need to revisit them, such as the amount of time that you are going to be required to spend on your practicum each week. So my suggestion to students is that if you have vacation time in your organization due to you, save it to use it for your practicum, because you're required to spend no less than 2 days per week on your work. And every year I see students who said for one reason or the other, they didn't get approval from the organization or they didn't get the time off, and they're in a crunch in terms of producing the research and writing up the report properly and even gathering the basic data that is needed. So please revisit that instruction and that commitment that you made when you visited the program in terms of allocating your time each week, making sure that you have gotten study leave if it's study leave your organization has, or using your vacation time, or the organization might be good enough to say, okay, you know, we'll rearrange your work so that, you know, you either work longer days or whatever, but you need dedicated time. You need the dedicated time to carry out the practicum.
All right, I see Rashina with one more question. This will be the last one before our next presentation.
Yes, Olivia, based on what Miss Grace just said, I want to know what is the minimum time frame that we can stay at the organization? The minimum per day.
That you can stay at the organization?
You're actually supposed to be there. All right, the practicum is a 3 full days per week for 8 weeks. You negotiate that time. You negotiate the time with the organization. You're not required to sit at a desk in an organization for 8 hours, 3 days a week for 8 weeks. because you may have to go gather data on behalf of the organization. You have readings that you have to do. You have all sorts of things that you have to do to get your practicum together. So it is time that you negotiate with the organization. But the quality of the work that the program requires and that the organization deserves requires you to give about 8 hours, 3 full days a week, 8 hours a day for 8 weeks, 3 days a week. We're looking at it as a qualitative thing. You can't rush through it. And as I said, we do check logs. So the organization should know that they've seen you even 2 days for the week, or they must know that they saw you for the first 5 weeks, 3 days a week, and then you fell off to 2, yes, but it's because you're putting the information together. But they must say that they know you. They must know you. All right?
If I mean, this sound like
1 minute, 1 minute, 1 minute.
Sorry,
If
Dr. Martin-Hall is saying something. 1 second.
If I may add, Olivine, because of the virtual situation now, in many cases, you are not going to be able to physically go in the organization. Okay, you're not going to be able to physically go into the organization. Some organizations may facilitate it, but this past year I found out that those were few in terms of wanting you to come in, but they allowed the time for you to carry out the virtual activities with them, so that if you were doing an interview and you'd set up that interview properly and it would take an hour or an hour and a half, they're allocating that time to you. When we say you need 2 days, 2 to 3 days per week, it's a total time that you must dedicate to your work, not that you are going to spend 3 days in an organization, because you're not going in there to physically be an employee. You're going in there as a consultant to gather your data and whatever. So if you have several interviews to carry out in the organization and you have scheduled them over a period of a day or 2 days, yes, you might find that you spend the majority of a day in there or the majority of 2 days doing that. But when we say 3 days, it means the dedicated time, and it is for you to see how you will distribute this time. But it's dedicated time that is required.
All right, thanks, Doc. Thanks a whole lot. I'm sure this is the first time that a lot of you are hearing about this. So the questions, it's beginning to, it's bothering you a little bit. But listen to the students who've lived through the experience and let the questions sit with you for a little while and we can discuss them again at a later time. So I want to thank Shawna and Jillian for their participation. They've done good work. They've done really good work. And as I've told you, they are prize winners in the HRD program. I want to inspire you guys to meet the persons who've lived this before you. I know that it's hard, but other students have gone through this process. They've done well, and the university salutes them. It's not even only the HRD program. So I'm hoping you're inspired by actually meeting these young ladies. So yes, as Ms. McCalla, Rohan is saying, don't let it bother you. It is achievable. And as I was telling the persons who were here early, students have got employment out of the practicum. There's some organizations that have been so impressed with the work that the students have done during the practicum that they've hired them. So it is something for you to consider. You never know who is watching you when you're doing your work. Person might be so impressed. Students have started organizations of their own. They've developed their own enterprise out of the success that they've had in the practicum. So don't be afraid of it. It's one of your early attempts at being a consultant. So it is something that the program, you do for yourself through the program. All right. So thanks again to the ladies who've just delivered their presentation. And I would like to invite Tasharna Thompson Henny to come forward. This year, we did a research project. And the outcome of this, we're hoping, will be a journal article. So again, it is the program moving into new areas. And I know that for several of the persons here, they just completed their research methods course. So I'm hoping that some of them will be listening keenly to what happened in real life to somebody doing research or attempting research. And yes, attempting it under COVID conditions. So it is not normal, but let's hear it. You know, and I'm really pleased about this one, really pleased. Okay, well, Mrs. Thompson Henny gets her.
Sorry.
Okay. You have fans. You have fans.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So,
good evening, Tasharna.
Hi.
We're seeing. I don't know what you're seeing. We're seeing host name, IP address, and all of that. I'm not sure that this is what you want to be showing us.
No, I actually want to.
She has made it in the top 5.
Who is that, Philip?
The one and only.
Philip Earl, celebrating him as a former work colleague. Did Jillian and did you stop sharing your screen?
You are.
Okay. Now the full slideshow. Good. No, we're seeing your notes page, the full slideshow.
Okay, give me 1 second, a few seconds, please.
Yes, thank you so much.
All right. Hello, everyone. How are we? I am Jodianna Clarke from 2020. We should have been 2020. We're 2021 cohort. And I did training and development with Professor Hutton. And my focus was an evaluation of the effectiveness of the management development program as a succession management tool for the NCB Financial Group. So just off the bat, I will say that it required me to pay attention in not only my training class, but my performance management class and my staffing class and my research class. So that's the first tip out the gate. As a consultant, you not only bring your specific area, but you bring an understanding of HR as a whole. All right, will you allow me? All right, so training, I have what we'll do, and I'm using is training and development, so I'm gonna make it a little bit fun, and the approach will be a little different as well. So I'm using getting ready for a race. So I'm using the on your mark, get set, go, and I'll walk you through my experience and the things that helped me to be successful on this journey. So guys, first thing, on your mark. Number 1, know your why. And I heard that question come up. A young lady asked that question before, and other than choosing a specialization, it's also important to know why you're choosing the specialization, why you're choosing that organization. And there are many things, because we met up on Saturday. A few of us from our cohort met up on Saturday. And for some people, it was the lecturer. They believed in that lecturer, they knew they would get the guidance, and that's why they chose that area. For other persons, it was their strength in that particular subject area. So for me, that was it. I love training. I've worked in it for years, and so it was a natural fit. And I was also very curious about the things that I'd been exposed to in the course and developing that skill set. So guys, know your why. Dr. Martin-Hall spoke to this, which is know the company. We had this year in the training and organizational development group, persons who approached companies, companies said yes, but when they got into the company, they had issues. And so even before you begin to run your practicum, find a good company, know your company, start finding out what the company is like, start knowing who you need approval from. Those sorts of things are important. Olivine, I will address something you raised. So I had the privilege, because of COVID, of using my own company. I'm not sure if that will be allowed going forward. It normally is not, but because of the pandemic, even though I was using my company, I had to get the letter addressed to the AGM of HR. She had to give written approval. I had to, a formal announcement was made to the members of the team. Everything followed the process that we are taught, even though I work at this company. And that was very, very, very important. I had to check in, I had to log, same process, and those things are important. The last thing I have here, guys, is know your weakness. And I know Mr. McCalla will probably shake his head when I say this, but one of my weaknesses is research. I am not naturally strong at research, and so I knew even before going into my practicum, I would have to spend time and allot time to ensure referencing was correct. In the data collection section, all those things were properly labeled. That was important. So guys, know where you will need reinforcement, and that is, you've not even started the race. This is just the mental process that you're going through as you prepare for your practicum. All right, get set. We are now about to take off, and something here that is kind of interesting, and people might wonder why, but the grading sheet and matrix, if you get one, not all, I'm not sure if all subject areas get one, but we get one for organizational development and training. It is a guide. It tells you upfront where you need to put your effort. It tells you upfront what Prof is looking for. And one thing I would like to let you know about Prof, Prof is a coach. He come onto the track and run with you. He coaches you, he gives you the tools, and you are the consultant. So especially in our group, we found the matrix to be super helpful in just understanding, okay, this is what he wants to see, this is what is not so important, and it allows you to map and devise your work plan. All right, still on the get set, in training, you will be required to do a practicum proposal. You will be tempted to not do it. You will be tempted to not go to the weekly check-ins with Prof. Ignore that temptation. It is important that you get the continuous feedback on the process and hear from each other, because Prof does it as almost like a class. So you're hearing what other people are going through, you're able to give solutions. Don't ignore his request for the practicum proposal, and please, as much as you can, go to the practicum sessions. All right, I didn't do the research like Tash, but guys, decide your research approach. Because if you're gonna do mixed methods, which I had to do because I was evaluating a program that already existed, ensure that you just refresh your mind on what are the requirements there. Another thing I did was I developed my timetable week over week. Guys, this is all prep work. You've not started as yet, but the prep work for me was a key to my success because I understood what the academic demands were. I understood what Prof was looking for. And so when I began to act as the consultant, I understood the context. And it's important to understand your context because there are some organizations that will want you to be superwoman or superman. And that is not within the context of your practicum. So that's very important. All right, let's go. So I did a training evaluation, which means the bank had already implemented this program. I am going in to evaluate what they implemented, and I am so in that process, and I think you would have done training already. Some people have done training already. So you understand the various processes, what feeds into what. If you are going to do training, guys, you cannot, and I say cannot, should not, attempt without your text. Blanchard and Thacker is one of the best books we use throughout the program, and I guess I'm biased because that's my area. But this book I had with me every single day during the practicum. Why? Training has principles, and there's a structure, and there's a system, and it is an established body of knowledge. And so if you are a consultant going into an organization, people expect you to know this body of knowledge and speak from an informed position. So because I had done training, not in the semester that I was doing practicum, I had to refer to Blanchard and Thacker. So this matrix that you're seeing was something Sir actually told me to build out and use it to guide the process. And it's in the book. I got the model from the book, and then I fit in everything that I was finding. When I got to the outcome section, so I'll tell you a mistake I made. Guys, because it was my organization, I assumed I knew what the outcome would be because it was my organization, right? And that was a big error on my part. When I started to apply the Kirkpatrick model, level by level by level by level, it took me along a different journey. And that's the thing with data. It's important that when you're choosing an organization or you're choosing an area, you have something to start with. You need data points because it is an academic exercise. And so your analysis of the data that you find is important to validate the recommendations that you're going to make to the organization. So I had one conclusion in mind, but the data led me along another journey. And so all of these things that you're seeing on this matrix here was how my paper was broken down. So I had to have my evaluation objectives. I had to say what the organizational constraints were. I had to say my design issues and explain. That fed into the evaluation strategy and design. And guys, if you are recalling, this section carried the bulk of the marks for the training paper. So I had to spend time breaking it out, restudying the Kirkpatrick model, getting multiple references to ensure I'm analyzing correctly. And then at the end, I was able to make recommendations to the organization. What I found, and I can just wrap up with this, what I found was that people were not matriculating into the higher roles, even though that was the objective of the training program, and it's a very expensive training program. And so I had recommendations pulling from all areas of HR to the organization. as to how we could close the gap identified by my evaluation. So with that, I will close and take questions.
Outstanding presentation. Thank you so much. Are there any questions?
Yes, good evening. Again, my name is Philip. I just have one question. Were any of your findings implemented to enhance the training and development processes of the organization?
So they are in the process. So I had to speak to both talent management and learning because of how the roles are split in the organization. When they're finished with the learning portion, the succession management is handled by talent. So yes, I did have a long discussion with the talent manager, and she's in the process of seeing how we can put another piece to the formal training itself.
Okay, awesome. So the work wasn't in vain.
No, no. And ultimately, it was my organization, so it was a pleasure to give the feedback.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Jodianna.
Yes, I have a question for her. I'm sorry.
Okay, Jodianna, you mentioned that the company wanted you to or expected you to be superwoman. What do you mean by that?
No, I wasn't saying that they expected me to be superwoman. I'm saying it's important that we know the context that we're operating in as consultants. Because we have, so over the weekend, one of our colleagues was telling us his company expected him to be, he was an intern. They wanted to treat him like an intern. So it's important that we understand what's the scope of our practicum and the fact that we're acting as consultants.
Okay, understand.
But in my case, I had given them every piece of paper Olivine gave me. They understood.
Okay. May I make 2 comments here, Ms. Thomas? Let me just add something to that question about being a consultant. One of the things that you have to be careful of is that, yes, you are a consultant for the purpose of the practicum, but do not get yourself embroiled in agreeing to be a consultant after you have finished your practicum. The company, in many cases, especially I find in the smaller companies, they would like to hold on to you and for you to come back and do a series of things. And you have to be careful because sometimes you'll find yourself out of your depth as well. So you'll have to make it quite clear that you are consulting in order to have this research done, but you are not a fully fledged consultant, because you'll find that some advantage will be taken of you as well, and you'll be invited to come back at no cost to carry out. Now, we've had a student, for instance, a couple of years back, who, as a result of her practicum and the skills that she showed, the company actually employed her in a position that was similar to a consultancy, but she became I think it was the training manager for that organization. Okay, but you'll have to be careful with that. My question to Jodianna is, did you produce a report? You produced a formal report in which your recommendations, and I think that's important for the group to know that there is a final document that is required, and that the university also requires you, and I think Mr. McCalla will support me here. The university requires you to use the APA publication style. Okay, one of the things we are finding is that students write and feel that it's okay to just write, but they're not using any publication style. So like the citations aren't properly done, quotations are not properly represented in the document, etc. So your final report is very, very important, and the practicum instructions tell you that you're required to use the APA publication style. But I was curious, Jodianna, because you didn't speak about your final report and, you know, how exactly were your recommendations presented to the
Okay.
organization?
So yes, we had to do the final report for training. It is a requirement, must be a rigorous academic paper, and they did not request the actual practicum. I just did a PowerPoint of what the findings were, what were the recommendations, but the officer in charge of the program has the actual report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other
No
questions, guys? The accolades are coming in the chat. I hope Jodianna takes some time to look at them. But any other questions?
Olivine, it's not a question, just an observation and a further comment to the students. And I did emphasize this when we did research, and Dr. Martin-Hall is also on this call, because do we have students behind this cohort who will do the practicum shortly? Or
Yes,
is it
cohort, yes, cohort 22 will be doing it in May to July this year.
May to July this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. You have next year, you have the same, the cohort, what is it, 23, of which there's
cohort 23 are the new people, so they will do it in a year's time. But there are some people who are right in the firing squad now, and they're sitting in here.
Great. So I'm glad we have the mix of the groups, because what I really want to emphasize and overemphasize is the need to pay attention to research methods.
Yes.
Instrument development, for example, the whole process of validation, and I heard it in what Jodianna said. She spoke about research being her weakest point, but if you listen to her carefully, a lot of what she was talking about was the use of certain research techniques, sometimes even in an unconscious way. And so I just want you guys to pay attention. Research isn't the sexiest thing, but pay attention, because you are going to be required to draw back on a number of those skills. What I found, and it was a pleasure for me, was that in Jodianna's cohort, I had one night, for example, and it was probably a Friday night like this, when I spent from 6:30 to about 11:30 on a call or on calls with students, just trying to figure out, for example, where do I go in terms of data analysis, qualitative and quantitative and stuff. And all I had to be saying to them is that, remember when we did this, remember when we did that, so and so and so. And so what I'm saying is that, please take note of some of the things that you're going through now. I'd also say that as you start this journey, while you may be doing compensation and training and development and whatever, try and get a sense or validate your approach very early. So one of the things I said to the students is, listen, you are reaching out at this late stage when it's almost like you're baking a cake and you put the batter in the oven and stuff, and it's almost done, and you recognize that something is going wrong and you're trying to salvage it. You shouldn't do that at that point. So that's a lesson to be learned there. But I heard Jodianna, talking about research, and good job, Jodianna. Good job.
If I may add to what Mr. McCalla is saying, one of the most important things is for you to be able to gather good data. You cannot produce valid work, reliable work, if your data is flawed. And in order to collect good data, it means that you have to develop a proper method and instrument to collect that data. And I'm finding that students are getting very bogged down, and I've spoken with Mr. McCalla about this because he's the research expert, and students are getting very bogged down in just trying to put together even a simple instrument to collect the data. In other words, you want to do a survey, you have to have some method and means by which you're going to get this data, because you'll have to show evidence. This practicum is evidence-based. So you'll have to show evidence, and students are not paying attention to the research course, and they'll come, for instance, to my practicums, the 2 practicums I do, which is performance management and staffing, and tell me that they never learned how to prepare an instrument. And I know that that cannot be true. So you lose a lot of time because your instrument has to be approved by your lecturer before you can begin to gather your data. So I just want to reaffirm that the research methods course is critical to all practicums, not just to training or to performance management and staffing. It is critical to all of the practicums. And, you know, he is completely right when he says that you will have to sit down and decide what is your approach in terms of how you collect the data. What type of methodology are you going to use?
And I just wanted to add too for Doc Martin-Hall, that thing about collecting data that is reliable and all of that, the size of the organization that you choose. You cannot run statistics on a 2-man organization. So you need to start looking beyond your friends and your family in trying to find your organization. But that is something that we always have to remind students. Dr. Martin-Hall requires organizations that have at least 50 members of staff, Doc, or is it 100?
Well, because of the virtual situation, I'm saying 50, but what I have told them, it's not a matter of just the number. It's a matter of looking at the organization structure and the distribution of the work categories within the organization, because you can have an organization of 50 persons, and when you look, all of them are below the managerial level, or when you look at the managerial level, you have 1 person here, maybe 2 supervisors, etc. Yes, you can do interviews of those, but you'll have to watch your reliability and validity. So, and then when you administer an instrument, you have to make provision for the non-response. So if you start off with 50 and 10 persons do not respond, you're going to have problems. So your room is very narrow. So I actually recommend that you try to go for larger organizations so that your risk factor in terms of the data you're collecting is lessened. And we find that the larger the organization, the quality of the study and the utilization of the study is better, because you are able to really collect good data, etc.
Guys, listen to this. You're beginning to hear now the practical considerations. This is beyond the classroom. When you're going into real life, these are the things that you have to take into consideration. So please listen carefully to what the lecturers are saying.
Olivine, just one quick other quick tip, and we've said it before, and Jodianna also said it. Start to think this thing through before you start. So Dr. Martin-Hall spoke about instrumentation. Whether you're doing quantitative, qualitative, or mixed, start to think through what is your area of interest, how am I going to collect the data, how am I going to approach this thing, and start doing some of the prep work before. That's important.
And
yes, well said.
Just one thing before Tash begins. So I did evaluation, which means it's either the data is there or it's not. Because this is a program that's already run that I'm evaluating, and I did have that issue. So I could not do a process evaluation. I had to discuss with Sir, and he said, okay, focus on the outcomes since you have more data there, because any recommendation I made, it would have to be validated. So even though I work there and I know things, I could not use that insider knowledge in the report. I had to have the hardcore data to validate at the end. So I'm agreeing with what Sir is saying. It's very important.
Just to add quickly, what Jodianna is describing there, and Mr. McCalla can probably bear me out, is when you do your limitations in your study, you will have to list what she just described as a limitation, because that is considered to be researcher bias. And you'll have to be careful, and in your study, prove in your methodology that you're ethically taking the steps to prevent that researcher bias, because you have predetermined in your mind, as she said, what the study is going to be. And some students will believe that because they have been able to predetermine it, they can just fudge through and produce the data because they live there every day and they know what the outcome is. But researcher bias will prevent you in real life from going further. You can't publish articles that have researcher bias, and it will prevent you from doing a lot of things, and it is unethical. So you'll have to declare your hand, as they say, in the limitations, that you were a part of this organization, and you should state clearly the steps that you took to prevent researcher bias influencing your study, because it's a big ethical consideration in research.
Yes, Mr. McCalla is saying we will see the holes when we're marking. So yes, the lecturers are shrewd, guys. Remember, they wouldn't be working here if they were not. Huh? All right. One last thing before we go to Tasharna. It's the thing about working at your own organization. Students often feel that we're being mean. And yes, we had to relax this year because of the COVID-19. But the thing is that we don't normally allow you to work at your organization. Not only because of the ethical considerations that Dr. Martin-Hall has just explained, but also sometimes the people in the organization don't want you there. The staff is reticent about giving you information because they're not quite sure what you're about and that sort of thing. So it is often to protect you as well as the organization that we say that we don't usually allow you there. But yes, we are under unusual times. Yes, it can work against you. We've actually seen students who've almost failed the practicum because they insisted on working in organizations with which they are intimate. But we've had people lose distinctions through not doing the practicum properly. So these are not small matters. The lecturers are raising issues that they've had over the years. Their experience is telling them that these are the things that you need to pay attention to. All right. So we're going to move on to Tasharna now, and thank you once again for an outstanding presentation. Jody, thank you so much. That was wonderful. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Thank you.
Tasharna, can we have you now?
Sure. Are you seeing it now?
Wonderful, yes. Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. So, good evening again, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening. Right. I want to say a special good evening to Mr. McCalla, my lecturer, and also my supervisor for the research practicum / proposal. Hello, Mrs. Dr. Martin-Hall. Hi again, nice to see you. And Olivine, OMT, oh my God, Auntie Olivine, you have been such a great support to me personally, as well as Cohort 21. So I want to thank you for that. And thank you to Cohort 22 and 23 for taking the time out of their busy schedule to really come and listen to our practicum experience. I know it will be beneficial to you all. So let's start. So to get started, I'll be looking on why I selected research, my advice to you, and then I will review the practicum, my reflection, useful research information, and then I'll take any question that you may have. It has been said time and time again, over and over, since I'm listening to the other practicum and from the lecturers, start your practicum preparation early. And one thing I will never leave out is to trust God to take you through it, right? It's not easy, but with God, we can do anything. All right, so why I decided to do research as my practicum, I was told by God. I was told by God to do research development as a practicum because really and truly only God alone could tell me to do it. And because in the beginning, it wasn't relatable to me. So I just decided that OD is my thing. I'm good at that. So that's what I'm going to do. And
back there.
Okay, so because of the pandemic, I had 3 organizations to work with. I was going to do OD, pandemic happened, things changed. So I prayed about it and then researched it. I thought it would also be beneficial to my future studies, just in case I want to do my doctorate. I know I'm ambitious, so. And also I will get the practical experience from it. What I wish I had reviewed my research notes, refreshed my research skill prior to starting the practicum. I wish I had a passion for research at the time. And the research proposal that we did it's a group work. I didn't know that to begin with. So that was something new for me because I was expecting to work on my own. It was good though, nonetheless. And research basically is a part of my daily life. I didn't know that. Research can be basic and it can be complex. I even sum it down to shopping online is basically research. When you compare the products, you compare the ratings, you compare what people said about it, you go to different sites to see what others say about it, to look on the price. That's a form of research as well. And at the time, I didn't know that the APA format had changed. So I wish at the time I had knowledge of that. But when we start the paper, we had to be going through and changing. Oh no, it's 1 space after a full stop, not 2 anymore. And a dash, sir will tell us change that it's not dash anymore, it's a dash and all of that. And it was just going through and changing. Because unlike Jodianna and maybe the others, they would have been familiar with training or familiar with staffing. This is a brand new area for me outside of the course. So it challenges us a lot as a team because some of the information was just not relatable. And when you're doing something that is not relatable, you tend to get flustered and it takes a lot of energy, and that's what we had to do. And my perception about research changed really after doing it and really valuing research more when I realized the level of work that went to actually producing an article that we easily go online and look up and use the information. And that's why sourcing is important, because you need to recognize the researchers because they put a lot of work into their paper that they produce in terms of an article. And this is going to be an actual research, and that's one of the good things too. So the research guideline, the topic that we looked on, and bear with me a little because it's not common and it is not as fluffy as the others. So it's research, so take your time with me and just be open-minded and listen, because you will learn from it in the end. We focus on emotion regulations among HR professionals, and that's what we are striving to be, right? So what we did, we examined the psychometric properties, and that is the ERQ questionnaire and the Big Five inventory. So we will refer to as ERQ, that's emotional regulation questionnaire, and BFI, that is the Big Five inventory. And I'll go into it. So the research practicum was focused on adding a body of knowledge that was specific to the emotion regulation of professionals in HR, right? The focus of the practicum was to basically, at the planning stage, that's what we did, because we did a proposal, and we're currently at the planning stage. So that is the quantitative phase of the explanatory mixed method research. What this means for us as a group, because it's a group work, it's hard for me to say I, even though I played a significant role in it. We review the relevant literature on emotion regulation and the Big Five properties. We prepared a pilot for these instruments. We pilot it, just a basic test with our classmates to see what will happen, and really go into it there. And we prepare a draft research proposal to be submitted to the ethics committee for approval. So, and then we did a critical reflection of our journey during the practicum. So let's get into it now. So emotion can be a source of energy, and so our personal and social existence is basically based on our emotion. We all have emotions, and as human, we always express our emotions in different ways, and because of in different ways and in different circumstances, and because of that, we have to regulate our emotion to fit certain circumstances, and in certain situations in the organization, you cannot behave the same way you behave when you're at home or with talking to your friends or so on and so forth. So we have to regulate that, and that's what we're looking at. And in order to function or to coexist as humans, we require, as I said, to regulate our emotion, and that's really that's natural. And based on growth 1998, it is quoted properly, just to mention. And emotion regulation is the process by which individuals influence emotions they have when they have them, and all. And we know that we have, or you may not know, there are 6 basic universal types of emotions, and that's happiness, anger, sadness, surprise, and fear and disgust. And based on if you have a negative emotions, the negative emotion can be detrimental. It can lead to bullying. Sometimes you're in the organization, you realize people are just a bully. Your boss is a bully, your co-worker is a bully. They don't know how to talk to people, they get angry easily, and that's because they don't know how to control their emotion. So this can be negative, and as HR professionals, you need to know this, because it will help you to deal with the staff and so on and so forth. It's getting longer. So basically the purpose of the research is to examine and explore the psychometric properties. And there's 2 phases, and I touched on one before. So you have the explanatory sequential phase, and you have the exploratory. So in doing a mixed method, there are 2 phases: the explanatory, the exploratory. put them together, you get mixed method research, right? And we're focusing on the explanatory phase, and this is the quantitative phase of the research. The next phase would be, after we finish this aspect, the next phase would be the qualitative phase of the qualitative exploratory, and that is the qualitative phase. I know for the first persons going into their second year, this is brand new because you haven't done research as yet. But for the persons in their second year and wrapping up, probably currently doing or just finished research, this is a bit more familiar to you. Don't worry, it gets easier. This is what the instruments really look like. Sorry, if you can see it. This is just a sample of what the instruments look like, and then we use Google Form, but I will get into that a little later. And this is basically, this research basically is to straighten the validation process. Is to straighten the validation process in terms of when we move into the qualitative data collection phase and compare it to the quantitative and the information that we would have collected in the first phase, then we can, the aim is to validate that information to ensure that it's correct. And Sir can back me up if I missed it. So at this point, we just need to, the proposal will allow us to collect the information, analyze the information, and report on the detail of the information that we collected. All right, so what is the issue? Why we need to do this research? Why is there a need for this? Currently, there is a need to examine continually and improve measure that test emotional regulation. This becomes very important to the fact that the information gathering on a potential emotion regulation must be one that is trusted to be what it is. So when I say that, it have to be valid, it have to be reliable. So we need to ensure that the information that we're coming out with will prove that this is the correct instrument to use, because what we're looking at is really the instrument, which is the ERQ questionnaire that as HR professional we can use in our interviewing process and stuff like that. So we need to ensure that it is correct. And right now, the emotional regulation questionnaire, ERQ, by gross 1999, is not commonly used in certain places. So the instrument may not be suitable or relevant to Jamaica, maybe, when we carry out the full research. We don't know that yet. So we have to go through the research to see if it will make sense, and some of the jargons and words used may not be related to the Caribbean. So that's one of the things that we have to take into consideration as well, because if we do a research and validate an instrument that is not right for our country or for our group, it can lead to HR people hiring the wrong talent, and hiring the wrong talent, can lead to litigation. And so we have to be very careful. It is serious, it is long, but we have to ensure that whatever we're doing is correct. And some of the questions that we like this research to answer: what are the internal consistency score for the suppression and the reappraisal of the ERQ? So the reappraisal is basically how you control your emotion before you get one. And the suppression is what you do after you have that emotion, whether you get angry. What you do when you get angry, do you explode or do you come to 10 and calm yourself down? Or you're in a meeting, you get good news, you just get up and just be excited about it in the meeting, or you just know how to really suppress that emotion until you're in the right space. So we also want to know what are the convergent and the discriminant validity score from the ERQ when considering the big five. So what information did we get from the ERQ questionnaire versus when we use the big five? Is it matching up, right? And what is the factor structure of the ERQ? What is it really? Sorry, let me see right there. Running. So all right, so this is a very good part for me because I'm very hands-on kind of person. I love to explore and build stuff. So this is a good area. This is the data collection section. This is basically the same instrument I showed you earlier that we placed into Google Form that created this questionnaire that we were able to send out just to ensure that it worked to our classmates. Not for really to validate the information, but just to ensure that the form actually works. So when we do decide to use it, it is up and running. So this was done in Google Form. So this is the questionnaire itself. Once the participants answer the questionnaire, then it automatically move it to an Excel spreadsheet in Google Form. It's a good tool to know, guys. It will help you significantly, not only in the master's program, but also at work in your organization. And then Google Form can also analyze the data for you, but we are not going to use Google Form to analyze our data. We're going to use SPSS. So persons who may now be doing statistics, pay close attention because it will come in handy as well. Let me be quick. So I'm just going to do one of the proposed limitation and that you're not seeing on the screen, and that we are of the view that some of the participants may not answer the survey honestly, and that is something we have to take into consideration. And I mentioned before that it may not be relevant to our country because right now it is popular in Western countries, not in the Caribbean. We have done research on top of research, and we could not find a research that was done that is linked to Jamaica. And I think we found one that kind of sort of linked to the Caribbean, Trinidad, but we could not find any article that we could readily use that is from the Caribbean. So if we should publish this research, it will be big for us because it will be the first in Jamaica of its kind. So the support is needed on this one. And for the outcome, I'm coming to the end. For the outcome, how this will affect us as HR professional, how this come in, you understand? The research will be beneficial to many professionals, like HR professionals. It will be beneficial to researchers. It will be beneficial to psychometrician. And Sir kilo for these words sometimes, but see with us. And for the human resources professional, especially for recruiters, this is a psychometric property that you'll be able to use in identifying suitable candidates, and also for trainers as well. This is something that you can use as well to assess your trainees. So it is very good for us as HR professionals, and it is relevant. The instrument also benefits psychometricians as they use their psychometric testing on their patients and so on and so forth. They use it to test employees. And as students, this is a body of knowledge that you will now have, that it is produced in Jamaica from Jamaicans, and unlike us, there was none. You will now have this as to review. And the outcome continues. So what happened after the practicum? So we completed the proposal successfully. We satisfied the practicum requirements to complete our studies. And right now we are awaiting the ethics committee board approval to give us the go ahead to start the research, start collecting the data. Yeah. Okay. Do I have to stop because I think I'm over my time, or I can continue? Seeking permission.
Oh, please continue.
Okay, so thank you. My reflection is that when I was doing the course, I just wanted to finish. This was just to pass, and I was learning, but you know, some things just not connecting really. I couldn't link it to real life. I didn't see how it mattered. I know I want it because we have to source our documents, and that was the main thing for me. So doing the practicum, it's really give me a greater understanding and a greater appreciation for researchers and lecturers that produce articles and write and so on, because to get an article out, the process that you have to go through is not easy, but I know at the end when you produce that article, it is meaningful. And the fact that I get to see the process, I get to see Mr. McCalla passion. Oh my God, he is so passionate, he's so helpful. I could not have done it without Mr. McCalla and the group, because as one, it was 4 of us, and we came together as one. We each have our individual parts, but at the end of the day, it was a group effort, and I have to commend them. At the end, one person victorious, which is me, but I couldn't have done it without the entire group. And sir, I know Jody said Mr. Hutney's on the track. Mr. McCalla is right there in the boat, rowing with us. And I'm telling you, sometimes he will let that boat tip and you feel as if you're drowning. He will not allow you to drown, but he allow you to go and think. He's not going to give you all the answers right there, and then he allow you to think, come back, make your suggestion, and be involved in it. So basically, I enjoy it. I will continue to do research. I will continue to participate, and the team can reach out to me. The group can reach out to me if they have any question regarding research, and I will help them as best as I possible. I'm not a researcher. I am working on it, all right? So I believe what will help you is some useful tips, because I know a person is like, what to expect. So in doing our practicum, we had to, each of us had to come up with 6 to 10 sources. So for your literature review, your MET review, ensure that you have 6 to 10 sources. And Mr. McCalla taught us that don't just select an article, read the abstract first. Get an understanding of what the article is all about, because all, I know him probably booked me for this one, but all articles should have an abstract. Basically, if you don't have an abstract, you're probably not using the right article, or you shouldn't be using that article. give you an understanding of the paper, so you know that don't bother waste your time reading the entire article, because that's not what you're looking for. And this is a trick or a cheat sheet, not mean that you're going to cheat now. So you use the article that are widely referenced. You also, when you find one good article, go to the reference list and look for other articles. Instead of keep on Googling other articles, use the reference list of that article, and then you will find additional articles. Articles must be from reputable academic sources. Google Scholar is one. UWiLink, UWiPortal, which is UWiLink, normally give you good articles as well. You can use that. HR-related bodies like SHRM, Hermage, and Jeff, to name a few, they're also good sources that you can pull on information from for your HR studies. And when doing a methodological review, ensure that these are things that are coming out, jumping out at you. Reliability, Crumbach Alpha, right, sir? Validity, construct, and discriminant. And this is the last one, I promise. So, quick way to source your paper. When you're writing your lit review, 30-odd pages and all of that, is very hard to keep track of your source. So what I use is Microsoft Word. You go to references, you select insert citation, you select the style that you want to use, and then this screen will pop up. Once this screen pop up right here, you select the source that you're using. So, are you using a book, you're using a website, you're using an article, and based on that, the field will pop up, and just insert the information so it keeps track as you go. So at the end, you're not asking, okay, which book did I use again? Where did I get this information from again? It is there right in front of you. So we can go more into this on the next time. Persons can reach out to me. I can train you on how to use it. And these are some documents that I have right here. Right here, there are interesting documents that I have, useful documents as well. And these are just some print screens. So feel free to reach out to me. I can share them with you to help you on how to write an abstract, how to use the APA format and stuff like that. So do you have any questions for me? That's it. Thank you. Any questions?
All right, I have a question. How did you feel? I know you've sort of touched on it, but how did you feel? What was the difference that you saw in what you were taught in class versus what you experienced outside? You have a theoretical understanding of research when you enter the field, and then the realities hit you. How did you contend with those, and what were those realities that sort of stunned you?
Okay, so it was for us to write a proposal, and we had to write it to the university ethics committee standard, and that I didn't understand because we did a proposal before, and I didn't know anything of any UE ethics committee standards. So we did it and we follow a few steps and stuff like that, and we're able to pass the coursework. So moving over to the practicum now and realize, okay, this is real world. And because I just thought that what I learned in the research class will just stay there. It is not real life, and I wouldn't need to use it in the working world. To be honest, I am going to be honest. If anyone did research, I know a few persons will agree with me, but doing the proposal, as I mentioned, it really opened my eyes to realize that information that you garner throughout the program is useful in the real world. So don't just take it, don't just do the course to pass it, but ensure that you're understanding the material and you understand what is being taught by the lecturer, because you will get lost out there. People will look at you and say, boy, you go to you did a master's and you don't know that. So do pay attention. Do pay attention to the information, not just research, but all the programs. But what I can see about research, and I realized that even in doing the practicum, our supervisor was a bit distracted because a lot of students were calling him for information at the time. Not this, so he had to split, being the kind person that he is. So research is not just important for the research practicum, research is important for every course, all the courses that you will be doing. So take that into consideration. You need research for all the courses.
Okay, well said. I noticed that Mr. McCalla made several comments in the chat. Could he share them with us? Because I thought some of them were really good points.
Yes, Olivine, thank you. You know, I smiled because Tash, I don't know if you remember that very painful evening when I turned you all back with your methodological review.
Sir, oh my God, I deliberately left that. Oh my God, that was embarrassing because I did not, sir.
Yes,
sir,
but,
you need to
yes,
be kind.
But certainly, and I've heard it in your voice that you guys did learn Mel, Horace, you know, everybody. I saw you move from one place to a next, and you were able to actually better appreciate what you did in the course in a very practical way.
Yeah.
But let me explain for the persons on the group, or just to add to what some of what Tash actually spoke about. The experience I carried the students through was one of understanding what it meant or what it means to write a defensible research proposal that will then go through a process of ethics review and lead you to a place where you can realistically go out into the real world and collect data or to do research. So Tasha has spoken about the instruments that we are looking at or the area of study. And one of the reasons why we chose emotion regulation is now in this COVID environment, we're seeing that it is something that becomes very useful for HR practitioners to have as a key skill. Tash would have actually explained that one of the things we wanted to do with the instrument, the ERQ, was to ensure that that instrument was a defensible instrument that could be used in a local context. And so she also mentioned about doing that pilot with her classmates. And it was that pilot was twofold to help us to get a sense of if we were to use this instrument in a bigger context in Jamaica, what are some of the results that we would get? And Dr. Martin-Hall spoke about collecting bad data, and your instrument surely can get you bad data. And if you get bad data, you're just left with it like that. You can't do anything else with it. So that process of looking at the validity and the reliability in the instruments was very important. So we did a pilot. That's going to be very important for you guys to do. But what it also was doing was helping the students outside of their research course to better understand some of the tools that are out there in the real world to help them to research as HR practitioners. So now I work in an organization as lead HR. And good for me that I understand research, because every single day issues about research come in front of me. So now we're talking about HR analytics, and we're talking about what matrices we're going to use, and we're talking about performance management and stuff, and we're talking about performance management instruments and the process of appraisal. And so research comes into all of those things. And so going through that journey with the students, for me, helped them to understand what are some of the skills that you need in the real world. And Tash probably can say to you better than I will. I think one of the things that you will learn out of doing research is being able to pay attention to detail. So she spoke about, you know, going through the horror of the writing literature review, looking at APA citation style, looking where the punctuations needed to be and all of those things. But what it translates to is helping you in your everyday work to pay greater attention to detail. So in essence, what you will see coming out of this journey is that, one, you can become a researcher, but you have to make sure that you have certain skills that are transferable into the work world. And certainly, as HR practitioners, you're gonna have to know how it is that you exercise emotion regulation in this environment. So in a sense, we're actually at the stage of getting ethical approval, or trying to seek ethical approval, and from that we'll go out into the real world to collect emotion regulation data, and then we will seek to publish an article. So the ultimate aim is for myself and former students to publish an article in an established journal. And just to say that Dr. Martin-Hall asked about that final submission. So Tasha can remind me, but we did, our submission came up to about 50 odd pages. The students on the call now who are just start research would be able to appreciate this. I carried you through a process of looking at your protocol for consent. And so it is one of the things that Tash and her classmates, her group mates also had to go through. So what are all of these instruments that we're going to put forward? How are we going to collect the data? What's going to be the consent form? What needs to be on the consent form? All of those things. Are we going to store it? Yes. So are we going to store it? All of those things. So the practicum was really, really giving the students that first-hand experience of how it is that you should conduct a real piece of research in your organization as an HR practitioner.
Camille had a point. Camille had a point. Camille Drakes.
Yes, yes. And just to add to what Mr. McCalla was saying, and just to share, I can really appreciate what Tasharna, set out to do. Because one of my objectives as well, and I was listening for one of the presenters to say it, was that they want to contribute new information or new value, to add value to an organization, to generate something that has never been generated before, so as to contribute value. So I can see where taking on research has indeed opened your eyes, Tasharna, and even for us who will be exploring it soon, to how we can look at the literature that exists, the tools that exist, and assess them to see if they're relevant to our context. And using the tools that we have, the methodologies and the techniques, we can then verify them, vet them, develop new ones, and then we're able to add even more value to Jamaica at large and the Caribbean. So this was very helpful. I really appreciate what Tasharna did, the topic area, and how it was approached.
Yes, any other questions? Dr. Martin-Hall, you have anything to say? You're muted.
Yeah. No, Rohan has more or less explained everything. And one of the points I was going to stress is that a lot of the work that is done in this entire practicum course is applicable to real world, because from writing a report within your organization to being able to critique something. For instance, for example, if you are in HR and somebody has come to propose purchase of a Hermes system, an HR management system, or a consultant like myself might go in to revise the performance management system or look at your staffing system. You, the practitioner in the organization, should be able to critique what that consultant is bringing to you. So it is important for you to try and pay attention to all of your courses, because you never know where you're going to end up. Some of you might also decide to migrate, and you cannot get substantial jobs if you cannot show application. Application is very, very important. It's not good enough to just say, I have a master's in human resource management and development, and then when they start to give you projects within the organization, you cannot execute them. So it's very, very important. We're also at the stage in HR where the analytics is very, very important. Okay, they will ask you to create dashboards. They'll ask you to analyze like the return on the training investments, analyze what is happening with retention and all that sort of stuff. And this is where the research methods course and your stats courses are very, very critical to being able to carry out some of the applications. And whether, even if you're not in HR, the expectations now, we've moved into a whole different world and the digital age where you are going to be asked to do much more analysis of areas within the work that has been allocated to you. So I want to encourage the first year students to pay close attention to all of your courses. They are all linked, and they'll provide you with great tools. You have some great textbooks, which I've told a lot of students you should never part with. As time goes on, you should probably acquire the most up-to-date version. But I have textbooks, and I just have not updated some of the versions, but I have textbooks from when I was a master's student that sometimes I still go back in there, because certain things won't change even though the books get updated. There are certain formulas and certain things that won't change. So, please, I encourage you. It's a lot of work, but when you go back to school as an adult, you always have to make that extra effort to balance your work life and your school life. So I want to encourage you to make the most of the program. It's not an opportunity that's going to come by again. And when you're finished, you'll realize the value of it. So just buckle down and, give it your best shot. All your lecturers will answer questions from you. You should never be afraid to talk to any lecturer or to contact Ms. Thomas if you're having difficulty, whatever. We're always available to you. Sometimes we have to manage, like Tasharna said, sometimes we have to manage the amount of calls and stuff, but I know I try to respond. I have given the students my contact information, and I will try my best to respond as quickly, as I can. We know it's difficult for you now in the virtual time, but you know something? It's not as difficult as face-to-face. And this is why I'm telling students that it's a great opportunity for you to do well, because the online learning is a lot easier than face-to-face. You just have to put in the discipline, be where you're supposed to be at whatever time, and participate in your classes, please. So I look forward to the next practicum group that's coming, cohort 22. I look forward to having you. And I'm sure that we're going to have some wonderful practicums again. We had some very good ones this past year. That's my closing statement, Ms. Thomas.
Okay, yes, and I noticed in the chat that Mr. McCalla said something about tools. Students must become familiar with research tools. We actually know of people who have been turned back because they try to do things manually. People are looking for you to be familiar with the tools. We talked about things like, well, QDA minor, talk about SPSS and that sort of thing. These things are available to staff members and students freely at the Mona Information Technology Services. So go in there and ask them. This technical staff will put things on your computer for you. All right, I'm seeing Natasha raising a hand.
Good evening, everyone.
Evening.
Job well done, Ms. Tasharna.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. How did you arrive at the research problem when you were doing your practicum?
So basically, when we were given the topic to focus on, that was basically there. We just elaborated on it, but it was basically there already.
Mr. McCalla identified a research problem for you.
The literature, Tash, and if you guys remember, you had to go to literature as well. So the literature actually helped you to shore up that problem.
And if I may add to
that. Sorry. If
I may add to that, depending on what your practicum is, the first conversations that you have with the organization will sometimes lead you to verify what the problem is, the gap or the challenge. So it's very, very important that you make use of those first conversations that you will have with the organization. In the case of Tasharna and Mr. McCalla, you know, their approach might be a bit different because they're not actually looking at an organization, but looking at a tool, and being able to critique the tool and look at the literature, yes, will lead them towards the problem. Now, after in many of the other practicums, after you've had those first conversations and you start looking at your literature, you're going to use your literature to help you, as they've said, pinpoint the gaps, you know, and verify what you thought may be a gap, and to also at some stage look at what are the solutions that are being presented by other researchers, etc. So identifying the problem statement might be a little different in some of the practicums, because some you will have to gather factual information at the beginning to understand the organization and why they're even wanting you in there and what they're hoping to do with whatever you produce. Because in many of the cases, the organization is looking forward to getting the study and being able to implement a lot of the interventions that you may recommend, you know, in the study. So those conversations, your ability to communicate is one of the most important things in carrying out a practicum. You cannot be afraid to speak to the organization and to the persons that, you know, you are going to work with in the organization. So your communication skills are very, very important, and you have to be prepared before you go in there. You should do a bit of research yourself on the topic that you're embarking on, so that when you do meet for the first time with whoever it is in the organization, you have a fair idea and have been able to formulate some questions for yourself in terms of your introductory research on the organization.
Okay, and I'd
like to, sorry, go on.
Okay, so I stand corrected as it relates to the problem statement, because you're correct, sir. We reviewed the number of literatures, and we realized that we didn't have a lot of the information needed to support the instrument, because we could just not find enough articles to support them. And that's one of the way we came up with the problem statement. Limited information that was available to support the study.
Okay, I have one final question for you. Given your experience, is there an area that you think there is dire need for HR research at the moment?
Dire need for HR research?
Yeah, topic.
Apart from supporting and saying emotion regulations in the organization. I have to support the cause. Performance management. Yes, we need to do a research on why performance management is failing in a lot of organizations. We need to find the root cause, because it is not that the material is not there. It is not that it is not taught, or the organization do not have a proper performance management system, but it's still failing. And we need to find out why. So that's what I'll say.
Martin-Hall said that a lot as well. Dr. Martin-Hall has been pushing for serious performance management research for years.
Oh, wow.
And I should tell you also that Professor Golding would welcome projects in IT, and Dr. Sterling would welcome projects in compensation.
Okay.
So the lecturers are realizing that there is a lot of need for research. It's just that they can't do all the research that is necessary. And as you know, a lot of our lecturers are actually practitioners out there. So they are not full-time academics. So they need you to step up to the plate and work. I know they need you to step up to the plate and help them to develop the discipline.
Yeah.
So please look at research as a serious area of endeavor.
And
okay.
I welcome.
Sorry.
I welcome any suggestions, because yes, we have 2 options allocated, say for performance management and for staffing, but I welcome other suggestions about additional areas that we can look at, because as Tasharna has said, performance management is wide open. There's still a lot to be desired in the local context as far as that is concerned. So there are a lot of areas that are open for research there, and also in staffing, because locally most organizations have no structured way in going about staffing their organization, and the onboarding, as you heard Jillian and Shawna present, etc. So the areas are wide open now, and we're open to new discussions on these areas.
Mr. McCalla, he was shaking his head very vociferously.
Yes, so I'm glad for that question that Natasha has asked, because Natasha, it's an open field. So there is a need for research in HR analytics, for example. I've also been in reflection about the whole process of retirement planning and retirement preparation for staff. That, I think, is an area that needs a lot of research. There's also the whole thing of how do HR practitioners actually help to future-proof an organization. And even if we think about what's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years in terms of how jobs will change in an organization, these are things that we're going to have to start to think about. So there's this concept of VUCA, and HR practitioners also have to start to think about that through the lens of how it is that HR is going to actually help to support an organization in its strategic endeavor. So there are many possibilities out there.
Okay, so hopefully somebody is going to be inspired to take that baton from you and run.
Yeah. The local environment is wide open for research, because we do not have enough research on Jamaica. We do not have enough research on the Caribbean. So there is a lot of areas that are open. Sometimes it's just a matter of being hard to choose which one to do, and sometimes, yes, some of them require further funding. But if good proposals are written, then it is possible to get funding, from different agencies to continue this research, and for the university to continue the research. But Jamaica is wide open, because we are lagging in a lot of areas, especially when it comes to HR. So it's wide open in terms of looking at, different approaches to the research.
I probably just add, Olivine, that Dr. Martin-Hall, you're very right. when this group was actually looking for research articles in emotional regulation, and Tash can back this up, we didn't find any. Just the other day when I taught research, one of the things I was looking for in this course was, can we find articles that HR practitioners have written so far about this COVID experience? None. But what we found was that the persons in nursing, they were ahead, and they have already written a whole lot of research on COVID, qualitative, quantitative, mixed methods. And I'm saying, HR people are behind.
Even the task force.
Yes, so there's a whole lot. This COVID experience is one that I think we can capitalize on. And even for you as students, something as simple as writing an article and publishing it in the newspaper is important.
Yes.
So now it is that you have to be thinking of, how do you as an HR practitioner, one, get in groove with certain skills, and how do you help your employees over this COVID experience? It is something that you can write about, or you can research about. You know, so something as simple as, you know, what has been the journey, you know, of HR practitioners. This thing just hit us as a storm, and one of the things we recognize, and even me as an HR practitioner, we recognize that some of us were caught off guard in terms of preparation. In my organization, we started looking, and for a different agenda, because we're on a risk path, we started looking at how do we prepare persons in case of a
disaster,
eventuality, a disaster. And so one of the things we started doing was we gave persons laptops. We started this thing of a kind of soft working from home and all of those things. And so when COVID came, even before the government had put out, you know, everything about the work from home and work from home policies and agreements, and so we actually were ahead of the ministry in terms of putting out things. But when I spoke to some of my other colleagues, they were behind in terms of some of the preparation. And so even as we think about, we have to think as HR practitioners, why were we caught off guard? And so even that can be a study in and of itself. What do we do? And I spoke about future-proofing, helping to future-proof your organization for what is to come in the next 5 to 10 years. Trust me, if we're all around, we'll see that the next 5 to 10 years, the HR landscape will change significantly. So the field for research is open in HR right now.
Olivine, I think it's important though to look at the diversity of the class. Not everybody is going to go into HR, and I don't want those that, you know, have no real intentions of practicing HR, even though this degree is in HR. So I want to encourage you that we've spoken a lot about the HR practitioners, but this information is valuable to all persons who are in what I call supervisory management. So if you are a supervisor and you're not intending to go into the HR department, this information is still critical to you because you are the first level HR manager. Those of you that are supervisors or intend to move into supervisory positions or management positions within the organization, you have to keep in mind that you are the first level HR manager. A lot of the times why the HR activities are failing within an organization is because the line management have not recognized themselves as HR managers. So do not feel that we are skewing things towards those of you that are already in HR or who intend to go in HR, because the line management are the first HR managers in the organization. And all that we're talking about is applicable to you even as the first line supervisor. Okay.
We have 2 raised hands, Tasharna and then Natasha.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
Oh, I almost forgot that I raised my hand. Basically for me is just to encourage the students to really participate outside of just their regular courses. Volunteer your time because it's for a useful cause. So don't just pass through the master's program, and that was one of my things. I didn't just want to pass through the program and didn't have an impact. So don't do it, because any or most persons can get a degree, but it takes somebody special to really go back and contribute to something that is meaningful. So I hope you will assist Dr. Martin-Hall and Mr. McCalla and just the university and all with their research, as I will be doing the same to the best of my ability. And you don't have to know everything. You will learn in the process. Take it one step at a time.
I have one last question. What are there any practical challenges that you encountered due to the COVID-19 pandemic while you were doing the practicum?
Oh, it's directed at me?
Anybody can. Well,
not for me doing the research, because I didn't actually go into a presentation. The COVID-19 to me and all going to school and doing my practicum, it was a blessing to me. I use it to my advantage and stuff like that. And we were able to automate a lot of things, and that was good because it takes us to the next stage of our career, not just manual. For HR people, some of us, we're just too manual. And this COVID impact HR a lot and move a lot of HR to being more automated and system thinking. So that's just my view.
Okay, thank you.
If I may add, some of the difficulties,
Yeah.
Natasha, during COVID is learning how to manage the communication, because you may not have a face-to-face opportunity for interaction. So all of a sudden you might be working with somebody that you never meet face-to-face. So it's important for you again to improve your communication skills, and tolerance and patience is needed, because somebody will schedule a call with you, and on the morning of the call it is canceled and has to be rescheduled or whatever. So I find that during COVID you need to be more tolerant and patient in dealing with not just the client organizations, but in general with persons. It requires much more communication skills, and it also requires a lot of creativity. You have to find ways, because you're not able to go in face to face. You will have to find ways and devise methods to still achieve what you want to achieve, within the time frame, etc. And just pray for safety for everybody, because there's been situations where somebody has set up an interview with a person and that person came down with COVID, and all of a sudden now what do we do? And fortunately the organization was good enough to put somebody else on the project, but these are some of the things that could happen. So we pray and hope that the persons that we're dealing with in the organization stay safe and well. And you have to be creative. COVID requires some new skills.
Okay, thank you very much.
Alvin.
Yes. So
I know we've said a lot. Just to say that, and you probably may share with the students and the ones behind, about some of the suggested changes. But just to reassure people that wherever I'm at, I will try as best as possible to help you. So even if you're in a different research methods experience kind of thing, the unit will still try and ensure that you're supported in terms of research. And I'm committing myself to helping as best as I can.
Thanks for that, Rohan.
And I'm his disciple. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much. We've done better than I thought we would. I thought that we wouldn't be here for an hour and a half, and it looks as if we're going towards the 3 hours. But I'm going to cut it short and call on Trisha Gay, who is, well, all right, let me tell you, we are in the presence of greatness here tonight, you know, folks. The ladies who've presented are all prize winners. They're all persons who've been awarded the HRD Consultancy Award for their various areas. So Tasharna, she was awarded for organization research. For Jodianna, she was what, training. And for the 2 ladies who came first, Jillian and Shawna, they got the award for staffing. So we have other awards. So this is also something that I want you guys to understand. We have several prizes, and I'd like to just call some names. Dorian Campbell, she won the prize, the HRD prize for consultancy in small business development and growth. And we had Shawna K. Campbell, she won it for compensation, the HRD prize for consultancy. And Javine Jackson Codling, she won it for performance management. Now, the thing is, and we had organization, well, we had Tasharna for organization research, and we had the ladies for staffing. The thing is, you have to understand that what we do every year is that we're looking for persons who do projects that help the organizations. And the organizations, the people who work in the organizations have said that these people were useful, helpful to them, and the lecturers saw the academic work that went into it. So these prizes are not small. These are things that can go on your CV for life. Everybody knows that you're a prize winner. When you apply for your PhD, you tell them proudly you've got an academic prize from the University of the West Indies. And we have other prizes as well. I just wanted to let people know that these are things that they can do. Not only the persons who presented, but we have other people here who have been really good prize winners. Jillian, for instance, she also got the Gordon Draper Prize, which tells us that her OD as well as her staffing is on point. She shared that prize with Chanel Britton and with Jasmine Marshall Downey, with Pashik Palmer Williams, with Michelle Panton, and with Joan Powell Barnes. So that was a really good group there. Then we, yes, and we have
share the prize
as
too.
well. Even the students, even the students who are in the first year. Well, they were in first year last year. So we have Trisha Gay Robinson. She got the HRD prize for leadership. We have Colette Richards, Outstanding HRD Alumni Association Prize, which tells us that she was the best performer in year 1 of the program for her cohort. We also have Monifa Hayden, who was an outstanding leader, and for the 2nd year in a row, got the HRD prize for leadership. So guys, exert yourself, exert yourself. The HRD unit rewards you when you do anything. And I just wanted to mention Marsha, who is here helping me, Marsha helping me with the recording, because I like to have somebody for something important like this. I don't want to be the only person recording because anything could happen with me. And Marsha has stepped up to the plate many a night to help me secure the recordings that the students then watch. And Marsha, she got the HRD Development Prize, the Human Resource Development Prize. Sorry. And what that prize is the person who is a leader in the class, and that person has done the most to secure the class's welfare. So we're in the presence of greatness here tonight, guys. We're in the presence of people who are consummate HR professionals. So please join me in applauding them one more time. Right, so I'd like Trisha to step forward. Yes, you deserve it. You deserve every accolade, every accolade. So I want Trisha is just going to say a word of thanks to the persons who presented tonight.
Good night, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, Trisha.
I'm Trisha Gay, and I'm the student facilitator for cohort 22. I hope you all would have enjoyed this seminar that was organized by Olivine. What would we have done without her? So it has come to that time of the evening where the seminar is coming to an end, and I deem it a great honor to extend my vote of thanks on behalf of Olivine and the students of cohort 22 and 23. Once a great man said, feeling gratitude and not expressing it is like wrapping a present and not giving it. So today we take the opportunity to put our gratitude in the form of words and to say thank you to Dr. Grace Martin-Hall, Mr. Rohan McCalla, Professor Hutton. You guys have continuously passing on your knowledge that you would have learned way back and is gracing us with it so that we can do the same for others. We want to say thank you and we appreciate you all so much. We may not say it all the time, but we do. Cohort 22 would have gone through you guys already, and I hope everyone was a success in those courses. I'm also expressing thank you to Jillian Gordon, Shawna Symister, I hope I pronounced that correctly, Jodianna Clarke and Tasharna Thompson Henny. You guys really did outdo yourself tonight. Thank you for, decreasing our anxiety that I know most of us would have, especially cohort 22, where their practicum are coming up soon. Well, I'll let you know about my anxiety at the end of July. I can't tell you that right now. I can't let you know that right now. Thank you for sharing your experience, and I want to say congratulations on you mastered it. You mastered it, and now you're sharing your experience with us, and I want to say thank you for that. I would also like to express gratitude and appreciation to Miss Olivine Thomas. Let me just tell you guys, I don't know if the cohorts before are the one who is after us, but COVID-19 hit us when we least expected it, and she went above and beyond to ensure that the program continued, and we got through the end of year 1 and now in year 2 going strong. I want to say thank you to Olivine for continuous guidance and support. And finally, thank you to cohort 22 and 23 who came out in their numbers. When I came on, it was at 44 persons. Now it's 34. I guess some persons fell asleep, but thank you for coming out in your numbers. And I would also like to say congratulations to all the persons who were awarded. You were awarded for your time and dedication, and I do hope you continue that in the work world. Thank you to I was an awardee as well, so my time wasn't wasted there. And to conclude, let me once again reiterate my gratitude to you all, and I do hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening and continue to stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Trisha.
All right, so guys, thank you so much for coming out. We're going to call it an evening, and of course, you can share with the persons who were not able to make it that we will make this video available perhaps tomorrow, most likely Sunday. All right, but we will get this done for you. Okay, so thanks again. Good night. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Good night.
Thank you so much. Have a good night, all.
Good night, everyone.
Night.
Have a good night to all. Good night.